The investigation this Thursday night into Lisbon's streetcar tragedy. The accounts from survivors.
I shouted to my wife, "We're all going to die here."
And the Canadians believed to be among the victims. Mass stabbing in Manitoba. What we know about the victims and the officer who rammed the suspect's car. What the self-proclaimed Queen of Canada told Global News after her arrest.
Will you be pursuing any legal action against the RCMP?
And the Saskatchewan community who wants her out. Honoring John Candy.
I'm a Mog, half man, half dog.
The new documentary dedicated to the beloved Canadian comedian and actor. Plus, from Emporio to Empire.
He has really rewritten the way that the world dresses.
Remembering revolutionary fashion genius Giorgio Armani.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Portugal is in mourning after a popular cable railway derailed in Lisbon yesterday, and it's feared 2 Canadians are among the 16 people who were killed. At least 21 other people were injured, 5 of them seriously, when the famous Gloria Funicular hurtled down a hilly street and crashed. It was used by locals and tourists, and authorities are still working to confirm the identity of some of those who died. And as the investigation continues, all funiculars in Lisbon have been shut down. Redmond Shannon has our top story tonight.
An iconic symbol of Lisbon and Portugal, smashed to pieces. The capital's funicular streetcar is designated as a national monument, but its tracks are now also a scene of trauma and grief. I'll never use it again, says this local man. He had been in the car at the bottom of the hill when he realised the other car was hurtling down. I shouted to my wife, "We're all going to die here," he said. But the car didn't make the turn and slammed into a building. Police now say it's highly probable 2 of the dead are Canadians, with victims from at least 6 other countries, including Portugal. So far, Global Affairs Canada has only confirmed 2 Canadians are missing. The Gloria is the most famous of Lisbon's 3 funicular lines. It links Restadores Square to Lisbon's upper quarter. It has 2 cars which are connected by an underground cable. As one descends, it helps lift the other up. One theory is that the cable came loose or snapped, and the upper car sped down the steep slope. It's unclear why the tram's brakes didn't slow it down. Lisbon's transit chief said it's too early to assume the cable was the cause. He said all the other cars are being rigorously inspected while operations are suspended. In 2018, one of the cars derailed due to a maintenance issue, but no one was injured. Portugal's Prime Minister Luís Montenegro called it one of the greatest human tragedies in the country's recent history. He said Portugal's national airline will provide transport to affected families and will repatriate the injured and dead. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
An early morning call for help after an assault in a First Nations community in Manitoba has ended in tragedy. Police say 2 people are dead, including an 18-year-old woman and the 26-year-old suspect. 7 other community members suffered stab wounds, and the RCMP officer who forced the suspect off the road has critical but non-life-threatening injuries. Vasilios Bellos is near the First Nation. Vasilios.
Donna, the suspect has been identified as 26-year-old Tyrone Simmerd. In total, 8 people were stabbed at 2 residences in Hollow Water First Nation early Thursday morning. An 18-year-old, the sister of the suspect, died.
This is a time of year where we're sending our kids back to school. Many of us as parents did that this week. And instead, we have a community that is preparing to bury its young.
The suspect was killed while fleeing the First Nation in a stolen vehicle. He collided with an RCMP cruiser that was responding. That officer was taken to hospital with serious injuries. The amount of injuries led to Winnipeg's Health Sciences Centre to declare a code orange. RCMP are vowing a thorough investigation to understand how something like this could happen.
Right now, it's actively being investigated. We have people on scene, our forensic collision reconstructionist, who are measuring the scene and collecting evidence right now.
RCMP say there's no longer a threat to public safety, and they'll be looking into the motive as part of their investigation. Donna?
All right, Vasilios Bellos near Hollow Water First Nation in Manitoba, thanks. A conspiracy theorist who calls herself the Queen of Canada is back in a small Saskatchewan community today. Romana Didalo was arrested yesterday, along with a number of her followers. No charges were laid after police searched the buildings where the group has lived for the past 2 years. Heather Urix West is in the community. Heather, you spoke with her today. What did she say?
Donna, the conspiracy theorist tells me she's been surveying the damage she says police caused in Wednesday's raid and has no plans to leave this tiny farming community anytime soon. A self-described queen back in her castle, speaking exclusively to Global News.
I'm well, and with the people listening, thank you for the support.
Early Wednesday morning, Romana Didalo and 15 others were taken into custody. A live stream video of the arrest was posted on the group's Telegram channel. Police say they were acting on a search warrant after reports that someone living on the privately owned compound, once the town school, had a gun. RCMP seized 13 imitation semi-automatic handguns, ammunition and electronic devices that are now being examined. Didalo says her group returned to find some of their vehicles had their tires slashed. Will you be pursuing any legal action against the RCMP?
No punishment, just fix what was wrong.
Didalo and an unknown number of her followers first arrived in Richmond in the fall of 2023. The 50-year-old Canadian citizen promotes various conspiracy theories. Christine Sarteski has studied the group for the past several years.
I think a lot of her belief system stems from QAnon ideology. So the idea that there's a secret cabal of powerful people in the government that are running it from the inside, or that there are people who are human trafficking children.
Police say while all 16 people were originally released from custody, 2 people, a man and a woman, have been rearrested since. The investigation continues. The village's mayor and council say they have no comment on the arrest and subsequent return of Didalo and her followers, though some of the residents here tell me that they'd like to see them leave, having now lived alongside the so-called Kingdom of Canada now for 2 years. Donna?
All right, Heather Urix West in Richmond, Saskatchewan, thank you. A major highway in British Columbia is closed to traffic because of an out-of-control wildfire. This dashcam video shows what it was like driving on part of the Coquihalla Highway before it was shut down. It connects BC's lower mainland with the interior. The fire has exploded to 1,900 hectares since it started on Monday. Crews say steep terrain and shifting winds are making it difficult to fight. Evacuation orders and alerts are now in place nearby. Canada's trade deficit narrowed last month as overall exports rose. New numbers from Stats Canada show the trade deficit went down from about $6 billion in June to just under $5 billion in July. StatsCan says it's because Canada's trade surplus with the U.S. has grown thanks to more exports of things like cars and crude oil. The lingering Canada-U.S. trade war is one of the many things Prime Minister Mark Carney is juggling. He and his cabinet are finishing 2 days of meetings in Toronto ahead of Parliament resuming for the fall session. Our chief political correspondent, David Aiken, is at those meetings. David.
Well, Donna, as talks with the Trump administration seem to grind on, Prime Minister Mark Carney and his cabinet seem to have concluded that there's no longer the same urgency to wrap up those negotiations. Instead, a new urgency has emerged: create jobs and spur new economic growth.
What our government is really focused right now is obviously on the economy. So we need to protect jobs and we need to create some at the same time.
Carney and his cabinet did spend an hour Thursday in a closed-door session on Canada-U.S. relations, but they spent most of their 2 days at this North Toronto hotel talking about the economy. One of Canada's top pollsters says that is the right focus.
People are less afraid of tariffs and Trump.
Leger's polls are consistent with other public pollsters and also with internal government polls obtained by Global News through an access to information request. And they all show the economy, not Trump, is now top of mind among the majority of Canadians.
Over the summer, Canadians talked to us about the cost of living issues, which is front and center in the minds of Canadians.
Carney and the entire cabinet head to Edmonton next week for a meeting of the National Liberal Caucus, all 169 Liberal MPs. And that really will be the last data collection point for Carney and his top advisors as they set to craft the next budget and finalize the fall's legislative priorities. Donna.
Okay, David Aiken at the Cabinet Retreat in Toronto. Thanks, David. The NDP Premier of British Columbia is joining federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre in calling for the Canadian government to cancel or overhaul key immigration programs. David Eby believes they are contributing to youth unemployment and strains on housing and schools.
One of the reasons why we're facing fiscal headwinds is young people are facing a very high unemployment rate. This has been linked to both the International Student Program as well as the Temporary Foreign Worker Program. It's time for a serious and adult conversation about addressing these immigration issues in our province and in the country. The Prime Minister has taken some good steps, I think, to rein this in, but there's a lot more to do.
A new report paints a grim picture of the labour market for Canada's young people, but it's not all because of temporary foreign workers. And Gaviola looks at what factors have led to the spike in the jobless rate.
Canada's economy is slowing, but the labour market for young people is already at recession levels, according to new research by Desjardins Economics.
Unemployment for youth has gradually crept up and up and up.
The youth jobless rate has risen from 10% in 2022 to 14% in mid-2025. Another sobering stat, nearly 1 in 5 Canadian teens want to work but can't find a job. The report suggests our youngest workers may be the canary in the coal mine. A spike in the youth jobless rate is usually a harbinger of economic turbulence.
What we have now is a lot more young people in Canada than we had before, and the number of jobs hasn't kept pace with the rising number of people.
A lot of factors led to this. There's the hangover from the pandemic years, where jobs typically held by young workers were put on ice. There's also trade uncertainty, putting a damper on hiring, and the growing prevalence of gig work, inconsistent, precarious, and artificial intelligence, machines doing tasks typically reserved for entry-level workers.
There's a risk of that missing rung in the career ladder between the transition from being a student to being an employee.
Young people today form what I call Generation Screwed.
This on the heels of Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre pointing to decades-high youth unemployment to criticize the federal Temporary Foreign Worker Program. Prime Minister Carney committed to reducing immigration, but isn't scrapping the Temporary Foreign Worker Program, citing provincial support for the initiative.
We need to rein in spending.
Pledging to table an austerity investment budget in October. Economists say Ottawa needs to ensure cuts don't exacerbate what is, by many accounts, already a youth session during a cost of living crisis. Anne Gaviola, Global News, Toronto.
Another beluga whale and a harbour seal have died at Marineland in Niagara Falls, Ontario. The beluga is the 20th whale to have died at the park since 2019. It's believed 30 belugas remain. There are also several dolphins, seals, and sea lions. Marineland has been closed to the public since last summer. The U.S. Health Secretary in the hot seat. Coming up, RFK Jr. grilled about his policies and promises to make America healthy again. The U.S. Health Secretary faced a blistering 3-hour Senate hearing today. Senators from both parties pressed Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on everything from his actions on COVID vaccines to the gutting of the Centers for Disease Control and his refusal to follow scientific guidance. Jackson Prosco reports.
I never said that. I never promised. No, I did not say that to her. You're twisting. Yeah, you are. You don't even know what you're talking about. I did not say that.
We'll check the record. That's a question of fact.
A combative Robert F. Kennedy Jr. squared off with senators.
You're just making stuff up. You're making things up to scare people, and it's a lie.
As concerns grow about the Health and Human Services Secretary's gutting of America's health infrastructure and his policies toward vaccines.
You're a charlatan. That's what you are.
Kennedy promised to make America healthy again, but just last week he fired the head of the Centers for Disease Control, while more than 1,000 current and former HHS staff wrote a letter warning Kennedy is endangering the nation's health by spreading inaccurate health information. He did just that during the hearing.
Would you accept the fact that 1 million Americans died from COVID? I don't know how many died. You're the Secretary of Health and Human Services. You don't have any idea how many Americans died from COVID? I don't think anybody knows that.
Kennedy was repeatedly pressed about vaccine policy after the promises the longtime vaccine skeptic made during his January confirmation hearings.
I am supportive of vaccines.
In just 8 months, he has gutted vaccine research, restricted access to some shots, and installed fellow skeptics to approvals panels, despite being appointed by the very president who led the rapid development of the COVID-19 vaccines. Even Republicans who once supported him have had enough.
I would say effectively we're denying people vaccine.
You're wrong.
That same Republican senator refused to say if he still has confidence in Kennedy. For now, the White House still does, immunizing one of the most controversial figures in public health from any threat to his job. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Washington.
I've made winning my whole life, and when you make winning your whole life, you have to keep on winning.
Ahead, a new documentary about legendary Canadian comedian John Candy. Some of Hollywood's biggest stars are heading to Canada's biggest city for the Toronto International Film Festival, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary. Nearly 300 films from around the world will be featured this year. Among them is a documentary about one of Canada's funniest men. John Candy became a household name, starring in dozens of movies and TV shows before his sudden death in 1994. The new film takes a candid look at what made his talent so special and the private struggles he faced. Eric Sorensen reports.
I'm a Mog, half man, half dog.
John Candy still makes us laugh.
Del Griffith, Director of Sales, Shower Curtain Ring Division.
A documentary premiering in Toronto looks at his fame and films, a tribute that Hollywood star and fellow Canadian Ryan Reynolds has always wanted to produce.
John really kind of, to me, represents togetherness, joy, not punching down. John was a good person when no one was watching.
Candy grew up in Toronto and discovered his comedy chops on the Second City stage. He and a remarkably talented troupe created the award-winning SCTV, and Candy broke out as a major star.
All right, here we go.
Candy worked with a young Tom Hanks. As a child, Tom's son met him and directed the documentary.
He made you feel special, and John made everyone feel that way.
He could also make you cry. Berated by Steve Martin's character in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
You think what you want about me. I'm not changing. I like me.
I Like Me, the documentary, also looks at the deeper challenges Candy faced.
I've made winning my whole life, and when you make winning your whole life, you have to keep on winning.
If you go a whole lifetime eating your feelings, drinking your feelings, smoking your nerves, it shows up.
In those days, he could be blindsided in interviews.
Does anybody ever pressure you about your weight?
Does it bother you?
It doesn't bother me at all.
Oh, good, because I was wondering. You brought it up.
You're like, whoa, that's, not at all what I'm here to talk about.
It was hard for Candy's children to see what their dad sometimes went through.
And how uncomfortable he was, and how he was fighting to be polite in all of those moments.
Hi, Daddy.
Hi, Jennifer. How you doing?
But the film is mostly a loving testimonial, a story many current stars wanted to be a part of, and Ryan Reynolds wanted to tell.
I think he's beautiful. A person that struggled with things that everyone struggles with, and, filtered that through the prism of joy.
Thank you!
After all this time, I Like Me is one more film starring John Candy. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
He revolutionized fashion and helped make suits accessible. A farewell to Giorgio Armani. Next. Italy's prime minister says Giorgio Armani was a man who inspired the world and was a symbol of Italy at its best. The fashion legend died today at the age of 91. He redefined modern elegance. His luxury designs ruled the red carpet and graced Hollywood's biggest stars. Mike Armstrong looks back at the life of a designer who built a global empire.
The fashion world is in mourning.
Giorgio Armani's passing is being called, even by competitors, the loss of a giant. It was the company he ran for 50 years that confirmed his death in a statement, saying Mr. Armani passed surrounded by loved ones and worked until his final days.
He was incredible.
From London to Paris.
Certainly a great legacy.
To Rome. Armani's impact on fashion is being remembered as revolutionary. His name will forever be a part of the design and fashion worlds, this man says, and as a symbol of Italy. Armani was born in 1934 in northern Italy and grew up in a town bombed during the Second World War. He would say the fear and hunger helped shape him. As a young man, he studied medicine but moved to fashion in the 1950s. It was his partner that pushed him at 41 to start his own fashion house. Armani would tell the story often of how the couple sold their Volkswagen to finance the project. Armani would become arguably the biggest name in the industry, creating an aspirational brand. Where fashion had been stiffer, he brought swagger.
How do you get pleasure?
A turning point, he would say, came in 1980 when he moved into movies, dressing Richard Gere in American Gigolo. It would make Armani a household name and build a relationship with Hollywood. He worked on more than 200 movies, dressing stars on and off the silver screen.
It means beauty, grace. It means dignity of style and elegance.
To protect his brand, unlike many of his peers, Armani never sold even a part of his company. In fact, he set up a foundation so it can stay independent after his death and keep his legacy alive. Mark Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
That is Global National for this Thursday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Air Canada showcases Delia, Alberta, Redberry Lake, Saskatchewan, and Abercrombie, Nova Scotia. Thanks for watching. Jeff Semple will be at the anchor desk tomorrow, and I'll see you again in mid-September. Bye-bye.